One thing I want to make mention of here is that just because you have a privacy team doesn't mean that privacy doesn't affect every other group within the organization. Hello and welcome back to Privacy Professional Training. It's for me speaking. So in today's video, I want to be going over key concepts that I think you should take before you sit for the CIPM exam that is offered by the IAPP. So without further ado, the first thing I want to go over are the acronyms. The CIPM stands for the Certified Information Privacy Manager. It's an exam that is offered by the IAPP that also stands for the International Association of Privacy Professionals. If you are new to my channel, my whole channel is basically helping students prepare for privacy certification that I have personally taken. I have currently taken 6 privacy certifications. The CIPM is one of the ones I've taken. So I just wanted to give some insight into key concepts that are going to really help you with your studies for this test. The first one that we're going to be looking at is the term assess. So when you are working as a certified privacy manager, you are going to go into an organization that either has no privacy program, has a privacy program that needs optimizing, or is already optimized and is just trying to grapple with changes in the law. So there's 3 different stages generally that I see at organizations. So the term assess is basically where you as a privacy manager go into an organization and you take a look at what the privacy program currently looks like. Now, this is basically just like a gap analysis. You are going to go in there with your expertise. You're going to understand how a privacy program works already, and you're going to assess what types of gaps an organization might have. So one of these gaps may be that they have a privacy notice on their website and the privacy notice hasn't been updated in 2 years. And you know, as a privacy manager, that the laws have changed, one, for the organization, and two, how the organization has its privacy practices also have changed since the notice was updated. So that would be something that you do in the assess phase. And that's basically key terminology so you're able to understand where an organization is at and what type of value you can bring to the organization. Another key term that is crucial for the CIPM exam is a business case. A business case is basically a review. It's the starting point for an organization in understanding what the privacy needs may be. It basically defines what an individual business needs, what the business's goals are, and other considerations that a business may have. So I'll give you an example. A healthcare organization is looking to build a privacy program. Now, right off the bat, you already know the business case. We're going to be looking at healthcare data, right? So that would be one of the considerations that a business would have. In addition to that, it may be that this healthcare organization doesn't just operate in the United States, it might operate in other geographies too. That would be another consideration or need that the business needs to review when conducting a business case. So, taking a look at industry, taking a look at geography, I've talked about this in a number of different videos. One of the most crucial parts of any privacy program is understanding the geography because every country generally has its own privacy legislation. And as a privacy manager, you're going to need to be cognizant of obligations that an organization or client has in these geographies. And that'll also form part of your review of the business case. You need to take a look at what's important to the organization: compliance with federal privacy laws, compliance with state privacy laws, compliance with obligations in other geographies. That's going to form part of the business case. So, another really key term that should be reviewed for the CIPM exam is centralized governance. This is a key terminology that surrounds the idea of having one team or individual that is responsible for the privacy affairs of an organization. All the privacy decisions associated with the organizations will flow from the centralized team. So, for example, some organizations choose to have centralized governance for their organization for a number of different reasons. One reason could be simplicity. It's easier to have one privacy team that provides advisory to the entire organization. One thing I want to make mention of here is that just because you have a privacy team doesn't mean that privacy doesn't affect every other group within the organization. Most organizations have a marketing team, a sales team, a product team, and those teams may not necessarily deal with the ins and outs of privacy obligations, privacy policy documentation, and guidance, and things like that. Centralized governance gives those responsibilities to one specific team to deal with all the privacy affairs. Any rollout of compliance obligations are reviewed from this internal team and then rolled out within the other organization stakeholders. Another key term that students for the CIPM exam should have a good understanding of is a data inventory. A data inventory is a record of authority that identifies personal data as it moves within the organization. So I'll give you an example of a data inventory. Generally, a data inventory is compiled on a spreadsheet, and organizations can roll this data inventory out in many different ways. But one way that is quite typical for organizations is they'll look at an application. Let's say, for example, that application is Microsoft SharePoint. Okay. So the data inventory is going to identify all of the personal data that could be processed within Microsoft SharePoint. For example, a name, email address, business name, title, company. The data inventory shows how the data is collected within SharePoint and what the personal data could be within that specific repository. Now, there's many different ways to conduct a data inventory, but as and when it flows within the organization, and when I say flows, it could be that data is inputted directly into SharePoint. It could be that files are inputted into SharePoint. Any way that the personal data is collected within a specific repository, you have a record of that, and that record is a data inventory. Another key concept for the CIPM exam is the Data Protection Impact Assessment. So the Data Protection Impact Assessment is an assessment that should be conducted for organizations as it pertains to the processing of personal information, and it helps them to identify the risks associated with a specific processing activity. It helps businesses to identify the impact of processing personal data as it relates to products and services that are offered by an organization. A good example where a data protection impact assessment could be conducted by an organization pertains to CCTV surveillance of their facilities. Now, the CCTV surveillance in some cases is an automated process, and it collects information like a non-biometric photo. Sometimes it also includes voice recordings of individuals. So organizations need to weigh the impact of implementing CCTV surveillance in their facilities, and then also what are the impacts on the personal data they're going to be collecting, and what types of mitigations and safeguards are in place as it pertains to the personal data for that activity. A key concept for the CIPM is also the information lifecycle. The information lifecycle looks at data from its origination until the day that it's deleted. So different processes associated with the information lifecycle are collection, usage, disclosure, retention, and deletion. We've talked a bit about data processing. The information lifecycle and data processing walk hand in hand because the lifecycle looks at the data as it goes through a particular processing activity, from the minute it's collected from an individual to how it's being used within an organization. If there is any disclosure to potentially a third party, every single step of the information lifecycle has privacy obligations associated with it or privacy implications, and organizations need to be aware of that. And that is definitely a role that a privacy manager often is delegated with in order to assess the risk to the organization, and two, the legal implications associated with different steps within the life cycle. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you are looking for resources to help you in your studies for the CIPM, take a look at my description below, and I'll see you in another video.